sure that I have the question right. So I'm going to, otherwise I could give you a brilliant answer to what wasn't your question
Well,
to begin with.
First, what is a saint? And then second, some saints you love.
All right. I think of a saint as someone who has realized to the fullest extent possible the human potential. Another way to put it would be a saint is a person who lives in and acts out of his soul, which is the deepest feature of one's identity. For the second part of your question, living or dead?
Both.
All right, I will begin with history. St. Francis. Have you been to Assisi?
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, that
Wonderful.
that area just vibrates with his presence. And the second one is St. John Chrysostom, a Russian. And because he confronted the Tsarina for neglecting the poor, and their poverty was all around. Why, she sentenced him to be dragged to his death, chained to a chariot. It is reported that the last word that they heard from St. John Chrysostom was thanks for everything.
Oh, God.
Praise for it all.
Oh, my goodness.
For contemporary, I don't know, comparisons
Yeah.
tend to be odious, and comparisons between human beings. So I'm not going, I would just, in order not to totally dodge your question, I will mention 3 or 4. Fritjof Schuon is certainly an amazing human being. Martin City
Abu Bakr.
Abu Bakr, right into his mid and late 90s, he virtually spent his life on the road, visiting and encouraging the tariqa in countries all around the world. I am amazed at the selfless giving at that age. And I think you know the story of his death, don't you? He was about 96. He loved gardening. So after his dinner, he went out to look at his garden, which had been carefully planted so that something would be in bloom all the year round. He looked at his garden for beauty, and then he came in and wrote the last page of his book, put it down, and then collapsed on top of that book. I will add one more. I have had one guru, only one, and this was an Vedantist who headed the Vedanta Society of St. Louis. I had known major intellects before, Aldous Huxley, one of them, and I had known pious people before, but never before had I found both of these traits in one human being. And on the scholarship side, why, Swami Nikalananda in New York, Swami Prabhupada in Los Angeles, they would all send to my guru, Swami Satprakashananda, their translation of Vedic texts to correct them for accuracy. That was a scholarship. But then the piety. He would awake at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he would go into his shrine room, and for 4 hours, with paraphernalia and ringing of the bell, he would chant the sacred text. And then at 10 o'clock, he would rise and have his breakfast, and then see to the affairs of the society. One day, one Thursday, in the course of the tutorial, he said, Huston, no, he never called me. He always called me Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, last night when you were asleep and not dreaming, were you aware? I said, no. Wrong.
Oh, that's a big deal.
I was taken aback. I certainly wasn't aware that I was aware. In the West, you have 3 states of consciousness: waking, dream, and dreamless sleep. He said, in the Vedanta, we have 4 states of consciousness. We have waking, dream, dreamless, and another that we simply call Turiya, which means the 4th. And we do not give that a name because in that state you are plunged into an awareness that is almost like apprehending God. And he said, Mr. Smith, think of it this way. You know, I'm sure, how difficult it is to recall your dream. This state of consciousness, Tariya, the fourth, is so much deeper than that it's no wonder, Mr. Smith, that you were not aware that you were aware. However, you were aware. And he added, were it not for the fact that every 24 hours we recharge our batteries by experiencing.
Yeah, that's it, Arabi says.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing
Yeah.
almost God.
Mm.
If it were not for the fact life could not
Yeah.
continue.
We couldn't bear
It
it.
is just too full of
That's beautiful.
tragedies
Yeah.
and hard knocks.
Mm.
Houston and I have talked a lot about this experience because he later was getting a wisdom tooth pulled out and they put him really under.
Yeah.
And then they took him to recovery room, which they needed back quickly,
Yeah.
and he was still way beyond. And the woman, the nurse, woke him up like this.
I said, it's so beautiful. I told it to my daughter, and she said the same thing happened to me. I was under, and when I came back, my first words were, I love you.
Yes.
Now, that daughter is a very shy individual, and I doubt that she has said those 3 words to very many people, but there she was blurting it out to a total stranger. And I, in a talk I gave somewhere, why I mentioned those, and a hand went up and said, and the woman said, the same thing happened to me. But in my case, I was horseback riding, and I was thrown, and I landed on my head, and I had a brief concussion. And when I regained normal consciousness, I found my saying, I'm so happy. So when you think of those 3, beauty, love, and bliss, you know, not a bad characterization of God. And experiencing it. It's up to each one of us as to what we make of this, but I take it as evidence that that is the deepest element in us. And it takes something pretty dramatic to delve below the daily give and take and so on, and establish contact with our souls.